Dog. Boruto chapter 36. Gotta say this right now. If you are not reading the Boruto manga right now, I don't know what you're doing with yourself, man. Like, the manga is on fire right now. Like, it is hands down, month by month by month. Like, the manga just keeps raising the stakes higher and higher and higher. Plot twist after plot twist. I highly implore you, if you are not reading the Boruto manga, you absolutely have to start reading the manga. I will leave links down in the description box for any anime only viewers who are interested in reading the manga and doing so in a way that supports the channel. I once again highly recommend that you start reading the manga, because when I say that we're approaching some Naruto Shippuden level of greatness, we are approaching some Naruto Shippuden level of greatness, man. So with that being said, if you are still here, I'm gonna assume you're completely okay with any type of spoilers. So we just have to say this right now. We have to say this right now. Kodachi, when he wrote the outline for this chapter, Kodachi absolutely made it a point to show us the difference between Naruto as a father and Jigen as a father. Like, I titled this chapter review Naruto versus Jigen, but it's so many different ways to put that, because yes, you have the physical battle of Naruto versus Jigen, but you also have the philosophical battle. And what I really love about this, what I really love is how in this chapter you see how Jigen puts emphasis on the word son. He puts emphasis on it, and you get this moment where Kawaki's like, you're nothing like the 7th Hokage, you're nothing like Lord 7, I'm not your son, I've never considered you to be a father. And it's like, in that moment, it almost feels as if Kawaki, during the time he's been in the Uzumaki household, which it looks like it's been a pretty significant amount of time, he has started to look at Naruto as a father, and he started to look at Boruto as a brother. And that is so special. That is so special right there, because it just shows the maturation process of Boruto as a character and the way that he's been able to affect Kawaki. It also shows how Naruto, someone who didn't have a family when he was growing up, all of a sudden is having his own family, but he's also bringing in somebody who had similar circumstances as him. And what I really love about that is how even when Kawaki chastises him, he says like, yo, don't you understand that this comments like this, saying I can fix the vase without having all the pieces, is exactly why Boruto yells at you so much? Even then, Naruto takes it in stride, and then he proceeds to ask in a very caring manner, at least that's the way I read it, in a very caring manner, he asks Kawaki, so what exactly do you think about my son? And what I love about that, what I really love about it, is how you just see the stark difference. And then when Jigen just absolutely shows up, when Jigen shows up in this chapter, Naruto's immediately on guard. He's immediately on guard. But what I also like about it is the fact that as they're having this moment, this father versus father type of confrontation, you also get that one moment where Naruto's looking at everything, and you can just tell, like, Naruto, he's put the talk no jutsu away, because unlike the younger version of himself, he understands that there are some people that you get to that you can't talk to. They're beyond talking to. Like, that was always a huge problem I had with Naruto when Naruto was in Weekly Shonen Jump. I used to think that there were moments where Naruto would encounter certain people where they're beyond talking to, and I always thought that it was a little corny that Naruto was able to resolve a lot of his conflicts via talking to people and getting them to seek mutual understanding. I totally get what Masashi Kishimoto was trying to do, but I also didn't think it was realistic. I actually think that the way that Kodachi is writing this version of Naruto, this version of Naruto who is 16 years removed from the Ninja War, who is about to turn 32 years old, this version of Naruto understands that not everyone can be saved, and sometimes when you have to protect the people you care for, sometimes when you meet somebody who is a serious threat, sometimes strategy goes out the way, sometimes talking goes out the way, sometimes you just gotta knuckle up. And what I really love about this is how Naruto understands that once again he's placed in a situation where he can't go full out 100% power. He can't do it. And unlike the last time, Himawari is not there, so she's not in danger. So that is something that works in Naruto's favor. Hinata's not there, and we all know that when it comes to Naruto, Hinata's gonna rush in and she's probably gonna get one of them black rods shoved inside of her, and Jigen has several black rods to give her. So we already know that this would be a recap of the pain arc if Hinata got involved. So I like the fact that Himawari is out the way, but she's also with someone who is a very capable ninja. I joke about Hinata. I really don't care for her character, but even I have to give her credit. Like, Hinata as an adult is very powerful. She still has some of that chakra from Hamura, so Hinata is more than capable of protecting her daughter. So I like that aspect that Kodachi did there, to where if something were to happen to Himawari, Hinata is more than capable enough to defend her daughter. But what I really love about this is how Naruto looks at Jigen and he says like, yo, you're that Jigen person. I've been wanting to talk to you. And if you go back to, I believe, chapter 33 of the manga, you had that moment where Naruto looks at Delta and he says realize, like, that's okay. That Jigen guy's your leader. I'm about to hunt his ass down too. Put him on notice. I just love the fact that Naruto is immediately keeping up with this promise. But also, I like the fact that when Ino senses Jigen's chakra, like, Ino immediately passes down. I want to put this in perspective for you. Like, yes, Ino has sensory ninja abilities. Ino is one of the most talented, if not the most talented sensor in Konoha at this point. But Ino had sensed the Ten Tails. She had sensed Jubi Obito. She had sensed all types of chakra before. And yet, she gets a smidget of Jigen's chakra. Jigen isn't even in full power at this point. And she gets so weak in the knees, she almost collapses. Like, if that stand hadn't been behind her, Ino would have collapsed from the sheer sinister volume of his chakra. Like, this is showing us that Jigen is on a different level than any other villains that we've seen before. And when I made the video last month about, is Jigen stronger than Kaguya? You know, again, I told you guys, like, I don't do the power scaling, but even I can see what they're presenting here, that it is possible that he could be stronger than Kaguya. And we get a hint of that here. Now, granted, I know that Ino didn't directly sense Kaguya's chakra, so that's not a good measure, but I want to put this into perspective for you. In this chapter, Hokage Naruto, while he is in his base, Hokage Naruto remarks that Jigen is incredibly fast. And what I really like about this moment is that a lot of people sleep on the fact that Hokage Naruto, while he is rusty compared to where he was in the war arc in terms of how refined his skills are, Hokage Naruto's actually stronger than 16-year-old Naruto. So that's something you have to keep in perspective. So for a stronger version of Naruto to look at Jigen and acknowledge his speed, that tells you that this dude is on a different level than anybody Naruto's fought before. So he's on a different level than Tsuneri, he's on a different level than Kaguya, Madara, Jubito. He's on a different level. And what I really like about it is the fact that we don't know whether or not this is just base Jigen while he is in his base. What I'm referring to as base Jigen is before he actually absorbs the Ten Tails chakra that you saw in the last chapter, because the Ten Tails that was in that alternate dimension he was in, Jigen actually absorbed some of that chakra. So we don't know whether or not this is something added to his base or if he needs that chakra to go into that transformed state. So what I really like about this is that there's still a question mark there for Jigen. But one thing we do get is that when Naruto gets kicked in the ribs by Jigen and knocked all the way outside, right? Like, he disrespects Naruto in his own home, which, damn, yo, that is so disrespectful. like Jigen's like, yo, this is my house now, bitch. Like, this is so cool. Now, the other thing is that Naruto, you can tell, like, he's still in that intelligence gathering part of his battle. You know, younger Naruto just would have rushed headfirst in and started fighting. And if he picked up on subtle changes and little hints and maneuvers, and it'd just be something he picked up on, and he probably would have did so naturally. This version of Naruto is constantly analyzing his opponent. Like, that's something I really like. And I think that really, if you start looking at the war arc, that was something that we started to see Naruto just grow. And it was getting to the point where even Minato is looking, he's like, yo, I guess my son isn't that bad, but Sasuke's really special when it comes to strategy. But Naruto's keeping right up with him. So, I mean, this just shows you again, like, this version of Hokage Naruto, this is why I think that he's the best version, because he doesn't rely strictly on brawn. He takes his time, he weighs his consequences, and he fights with better attack potency. That's something I really, really like. Now, the other thing that I thought was interesting is how when those rods just impale Naruto, right? And Jigen says, just be a good boy and sit down. Like, yo, that was so sick right there, where Jigen's like, be a good boy and sit down. I'm putting you in timeout. I need to talk to my son. This is a family affair. It's almost like Jigen's like, hey, I don't do talk no jutsu. And so what's so cool about that is how Naruto is looking at all of this, right? And he's looking at the chakra rods and he's like, yo, these black rods, they're absorbing my chakra. It's doing so very slowly, but it's absorbing my chakra. So this was really cool. This was really cool, the fact that he sees it. But as Naruto's doing this, like, Kurama just gives Naruto a swift kick in the rear and he's like, yo, you're really disgracing the title of Hokage right now. Get up and defend your home. And what I like about it is how Kurama's chakra immediately activates, and you can't see Naruto's eyes at this point. Like, this is something just like with the Super Saiyan transformations. If you look very closely at the eyes, you can determine what mode the character's in. Like in Super Saiyan, when you have the blue eyes, everybody knows that. But little known fact, Super Saiyan 3 actually has the pupils come back. Now, when it comes to Naruto in his various forms, when he goes into his QB chakra mode, you see the gold eyes, and then when he goes into his KCM2 mode, and then he gets the pigmentation around the eyes. But when he goes into that Sage of Six Paths mode, and then he stacks his QB chakra mode on top of it, he's still got the appearance of KCM2, but the difference is he doesn't have that pigmentation. He doesn't have that total pigmentation there. And so when you see Naruto power up at first, you don't know what form he's he's in. So when he kicks Jigen, you don't know what forms he's in, but at the end of the chapter, when Naruto powers up, you get a clear shot at his eyes, and there's no pigmentation around it. Naruto has entered into a Sage of Six Paths mode, and he stacked the QB Chakra mode on top of it. So it shows you that Naruto, while he is going to be fighting suppressed, Naruto is damn dead serious on taking down Jigen. And what I like about this is that somewhere out there, Sasuke is aware that Jigen has another level of power. So we don't know whether or not Sasuke is going to show up for reinforcements. But what I like about it is the fact that Naruto's fighting on his own, and just like how he did before, he tells Ino, like, keep everybody away. Let me fight. Let me be the one who fights. And what I would find very interesting is if this battle takes place, if it takes place, or excuse me, when it takes place in the next chapter, because that's been confirmed. What's going to be interesting is if we get a moment like how we got in Naruto Gaiden, where when Sakura got really pissed off at Sarada, she casually destroys her home with a punch. So what I'm curious is if Naruto in this moment, if Naruto during the fighting, while he is, you know, fighting suppressed, if Naruto does end up putting out a little too much power during that fight, and he actually capsizes his home. Like, the presence of Jigen and Konoha changes everything. Like, when the spoilers came out for this chapter yesterday, I said it, I think I was applying to ABD's tweet, but I said, like, yo, like, I expected Kashin Koji or Delta to forcibly take Kawaki from Konoha. I never expected Jigen to be the one who did it. Like, I always expected Kawaki's exit from Konoha to be something that was done forcibly, and I thought that the vase was going to be something that was going to be a parting gift, and this chapter did set it up, because Kawaki's like, okay, I just gotta fix the vase with just glue. So the vase is going to be fixed. So it is going to be something we see. So I didn't quite get that the way I thought. I thought that, you know, after Kawaki is forcibly taken from Konoha, that it was going to be something that he hands the vase to Himawari on his way out. So this was really cool to see something like this. Now the other thing I thought was interesting is that while I did say that Jigen's presence in Konoha changes everything, this chapter ends up confirming another theory I had. So last month I talked about the fact that Kashin Koji was gonna have to pop up in this next chapter. He's been too quiet. The story has been keeping him out. If you pay attention to how Kodachi writes, that's why I implore people to read the Gar novel, because if you read the Gar novel, you get an idea for how Kodachi likes to write stuff, and so you can start predicting his movements. And so with Kashin Koji, you knew he was gonna pop up in this chapter, but what I didn't expect was yet another zinger, right? So what you end up seeing in this chapter is Kashin Koji is keeping watch over Kawaki, right? And the whole time that this is happening, you see the karma just spreading on Boruto, spreading on Kawaki. Neither one of them fully knows, and just before Jigen shows up, I don't know if anybody caught this. I'm assuming a lot of people did, but I don't know, right? When Jigen's about to show up, if you look at Kawaki's hand, the karma on his hand actually takes the shape of that horn that Jigen had. So I don't know if that's particularly something that happens when Jigen's about to teleport out of it, but once Jigen just appears out of Kawaki's karma seal, once that happens, Kashin Koji, he blows up his toad, or he either he blows it up, because you can't tell, but he either blows it up or he cancels the summoning, right? And that's one of the things I always say, that if Ikimoto, the artist for the manga, would take more time to give us more panels in the chapter, it'd be very easy to get a clear sense of direction. Also, it will provide extra detail. Now, I'm not going to harp on that, because I thought the art in this chapter was really good, and when you in particular get to see the character designs that Ikimoto gets to draw on his own, so like your Jigen and your Kawaki and your Kashin Koji, you see the stark difference in how Ikimoto likes to draw and when he tries to capture that Kishimoto drawing, because he can't quite draw the Kishimoto characters. He's gotten a lot better at it, but you can see where he's really at home on it. And just to restate, some of your favorite characters from Naruto, whether it be Part 1 Gar or Zabuza and Haku, the third Hokage's battle armor, Kisame, those are characters who are designed by Ikimoto. So I mean, the guy does have talent. But getting back to it, when Kashin Koji sees Jigen, I really like this cat. So what you see is my man looks at him and he's like, oh my god, I thought the whole time he needed Kawaki as a vessel, but he doesn't really need him as a vessel if he can teleport through him via karma. The whole time I thought that our mission was to collect Kawaki, he was really testing me. Like, you can really tell that Kashin Koji, his days are numbered. Like, Jigen looks over at Kashin Koji's direction, and then he looks over at the toad, and he absolutely just poops on himself. So I really like that aspect of it right there, because it's just setting up more future plot lines. It's setting up more tension and conflict. Like, that's one of the things I really enjoy about the manga, is that while it does rely on plot very heavily, whereas the Boruto anime is more character driven, what I really like about this is how the plot does have that moment where the the external conflict, in this case being Jigen and everything that's going on there, and then the internal conflict, in this case Kashin Koji having his hidden motives, Kashin Koji being seen very early on as a disruptor inside of Kara. You see right away that the internal conflict and the external conflict is playing off of each other. So the whole time that you have the main conflict of Jigen versus Naruto, you got a second side plot being built up with Jigen and Kashin Koji's true motives. Like, this is really good writing. This is really good writing. I really appreciate this. Now, another thing that I like about this that was definitely being set up in this chapter is they put all this emphasis on the fact that Sasuke's coming home. Sasuke's on his way home. And we know from the last chapter that Sasuke is aware of the fact that Jigen has a 10 tails in his dimension, that Jigen could possibly be an Uzumaki, and that Jigen is somebody who is very powerful. And as Sasuke says, I really need to speak to Naruto. All of a sudden, it opens the door for one or two things to happen, because we don't know what happened in that alternate dimension. And if you watch my last chapter review, chapter 35, I make a point to say it really feels as if Jigen was aware that Sasuke was there. Now, this might piss some people off. This really might piss some people off, and I'm gonna do a separate video on this, but we have to look at the possibility that Sasuke might have been killed off, and there's a few different reasons. The first thing is Jigen, if I'm right, was aware of Sasuke, and while a lot of people would be pissed off over the fact that Sasuke was killed off screen, I want to point to your attention to this. Moments like that can always be filled in via flashback, and one thing that Naruto as a series is very, very big on is the fact that flashbacks are something that it relies on. So I think this could be possible. I think that during the fight with Naruto versus Jigen, you could very well have that moment where all of a sudden the Jigen versus Sasuke battle is put in a flashback after Jigen reveals to Naruto what happened. So that is something we have to consider. Now, the other thing, which a lot of people are probably hoping for, is the fact that you could have that moment where Sasuke returns to Konoha. He teleports out. Maybe he tracks Jigen. Maybe Sasuke just automatically knows the coordinates to Konoha, which is very believable because, I mean, he's teleported there a few times, and he shows up to help Naruto. Now, this would be a Sasuke who is severely weakened because his teleportation jutsu with his Rinnegan absolutely takes a lot of Sasuke's chakra. It takes a lot of chakra. So we could see a suppressed Naruto and a very weakened Sasuke teaming up to fight Jigen. Now, I personally think that's overkill. Which is why I say we have to consider the fact that Sasuke might be dead, okay? And that would serve as another huge plot twist for the story going forward. Now, and again, I'll talk about that in a future video. Now, the other thing that I really liked about this chapter is when you get the moment where Sakura and Sarada are talking, and we get the revelation that the mitotic regeneration is something that Tsunade said goes all the way back to the time of the Sage of Six Paths. So we are getting more information there. We are getting more information, and you can tell they kind of kicked that further down the road. I think that that's going to be something that Tsunade is probably going to get brought in to talk about, which I'm all okay for. I'm all okay for that. And now the other thing on that though is I always thought that maybe Mito Uzumaki taught that to Tsunade because Mito had that same marking, but Sarada throws it out there that the Karma Seal and the mitotic regeneration is something that looks very similar. So I think that we are going to get the revelation that, okay, this comes from the Sage of Six Paths era, just like the Karma Seal came from the Sage of Six Paths era. So I mean, this is going to be really good. This is going to be really good. We're going to get more lore, and it really feels as if we're going to start getting a transition to the Uzumaki clan, because that is something that the story is obviously building towards. Now, I will say this much. I do like the whole thing with the card games, which is also something that, again, Boruto episode 114 touched on the ninja cards, and that's something that came from the manga, and now the manga is reintroducing those cards again. So I like the fact that we did see the card game, but it's during Shikadai and Enojin's card game that we find out that there is a bit of a divide going on. Now, we knew from the last chapter that Sai and Shikamaru are on different sides. They're on different sides of the fence, and we also find out that Sai in his own household, there's a divide because Ino's saying keep away, and yet Sai actually thinks that Kawaki might actually be a good guy. So I mean, you see the divide there. You also see the divide with Enojin and Shikadai, where Shikadai's like, well, I like Kawaki because he's a straight shooter. Enojin's like, well, my mom says to keep a distance. And as Boruto and Kawaki are making their way back to Konoha, right, and they're running through the village, you see Shikadai and Enojin look up. So more than likely they're going to try and tag along. And what I like about this is the fact that they could be using lose against Naruto in the battle, but more importantly, you will get that moment where they see just how much they need to step up. Just how much, like just how Orochimaru served as the catalyst for Naruto's generation to start training and get more powerful so they could bring Sasuke back from Orochimaru. If and when Jigen takes Kawaki, Jigen's gonna serve as the same purpose for Boruto's generation to take the next step. Essentially, if you look at Boruto's generation as having their own hero's journey, this is gonna be their call to adventure. This is gonna be that life-changing moment that forces them to start their own adventure. So I like this right here. I really like this aspect of the story. Now, what I want to ask you guys, is what are your thoughts about Sasuke potentially dying, and how hyped are you? How hyped are you for the Naruto versus Jigen fight? What are your expectations? Do you think that Naruto is going to take the battle away from Konoha? Do you think that he's going to fight nearby and, like I was saying, possibly destroy his own household? What do you think about that? What do you think? But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.